I know it sounds weird, but the phenomenon of this feels like the right one, I agree 100% true in real estate. What do you guys say?
I think that it's going to be very person dependent. And I think most people will know. Most people feel that when they walk through.
Yeah, we're talking about the feeling you get when you see the house that is the one. Sometimes you're walking through just one house, and sometimes you're going through 6 or 7 houses, and the feeling is different, whether it's before you even get into the house or you're halfway through the house. And, you know, there's a different feeling that overwhelms you.
And what's kind of funny is I think oftentimes, and you guys tell me if you think differently, I think oftentimes we can also tell when we're walking through with people where we go, okay, I better start clearing the rest of my evening because I think we're going to be writing an offer here tonight.
You sound so excited.
Got to redo my plan.
Exactly. No, you're right. What I tell buyers when we're walking through is don't feel like obligated to sit here and spend a half hour in every single house. You know, even more so on the feeling of that it might be the right one. You know if it's the wrong one. So don't feel obligated to sit there and, you know, chat about it. You know, we can always move on to the next one. Mm-hmm. And, you know, so you're exactly right. And I usually end that conversation with, I'm not going to ask you to buy every single house. This is when I meet them for the first time. But what I'm going to do is if you start giving, you know, buying signals, you start saying things like, I feel like this is the right one. I could see my stuff here. You know,
Our couch would fit along that wall.
Yeah. So those are the types of things like, all right, if you start giving me those, you know, signals that, you know, hundreds of other buyers have already given of just like, yep, they're feeling it. Mm-hmm. And they might not know it, but they're feeling it. And we're going to spend a little bit more time in there and get a little bit more comfortable.
Yep. Do you guys have examples of this?
Yeah, I mean, every time we sell a house, hopefully we have an example of it, right? But you get into a scenario of, from the pictures and stuff, it looked just fine. Pictures aren't always as great as they should be. So you walk into a house and it's like, wow, this room is a lot bigger, or the flow is a lot nicer than I was expecting. On paper, it made sense, but getting into it, it's like, this is literally the place for us. We just had one in town here where the photos and stuff looked good, but in person, the backyard, the layout of the home, how clean and nicely kept it was just absolutely, you know, up to 11 from where we thought it was going to be. And it was like, yeah, this is the place. So, you know, their shoulders either drop or raise, you know, as to how comfortable they are in it. And, you know, especially in a couple scenario where they're looking at each other and like that little smirk, you know, that they're like, oh, I like this one. Do you? So,
yeah. No, I've had some where it's been, we go out there already having looked through the pictures and everything, and they have essentially told me, hey, and this is going to have to be a really terrible house for us not to buy this because it's everything we want. We can already tell. We love the lot. We love the photos that we've seen. We love this. Like, there's going to have to be something really wrong. And that's one of them where you go out there with a certain expectation. Some of them, we walk inside, they go, yeah, this is, and I'm like, well, let us get our shoes off first. so and it's very, very different. And I think everybody's a little bit different. And as we were getting ready for this, I shared with these guys, I just said, well, what's funny is I don't feel like I had that for my first house. But we ended up going back to it. We ended up going back to it probably like a week or a week and a half after seeing it, because the first time that I walked through it, I said, yeah, I'll never buy this house. And we did. And I really liked it.
So your agent might have known a little bit better than you.
Yeah. Of course he did.
Yeah.
It was Tyler.
Yeah. Which actually transitions into almost the exact opposite of, again, we've been through thousands of homes. When we filter through a house online, when we're just trying to kind of look at a big landscape of it, I go through a listing way faster than, you know, my wife, my kids, everything. Like when you're seeing them, you know, that's where we're just looking for some stuff. I can tell you that there are several people very, very close to me where they're like, nope, I'm never going to buy that house. I'm never going to buy that house. And I said, I want you to trust me here. Mm-hmm. Let's just go see it. That's where they live today, you know, is because of, you know, learning a little bit more about them, kind of what they've said on previous showings, that knowing that this one checked the boxes, and sometimes maybe the color's not perfect, but, those are easily changed. But it's like, please trust me. And they're like, yeah, okay, this is great. But that's usually one of the first things I say is like, if I see something after a few times being out, and I say, I think you should see this one, please trust me. And that's like maybe another reason of those that feel of like, well, based on all of our other conversations, this one's checking those boxes, and maybe the photos are bad. We can look at photos a lot differently than the consumer because we've been in thousands of houses, and you know what? The photos that have one job is to get you inside the house. Let's just do that without being, I don't know, unethical about it. You can't Photoshop it, but they do their one thing is they get you in that house. And again, that's why we put the importance on previewing homes and actually learning how to look at a home subjectively so that we can best serve our clients. So.
Yeah, and I'll say too, as we're looking at homes, keep the conversation open, right? We were talking a little bit about this earlier. Your initial wish list. I got a little bit of a wisp. Your initial wish list is almost never what the home is that you end up in. So if you get through the stuff and you start feeling like you're looking for something different, keep the conversation open with us or your agent as well, because you might have decided that you don't really want to live in this neighborhood over here or that area. But instead of just kind of thinking it and keeping it to yourself, regurgitate that out loud to your agent so that we can kind of evolve our search and thoughts as well as we're looking at different homes too. So
help us help you.
Yes.
Tyler, you had a client like that once, didn't you, where they said we need
that was also you.
On one 4 bedrooms on one floor, south-facing windows, needs to be in like this specific square.
Yeah.
And they ended up finding it.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna you're exactly right. It was 4 bedrooms on one level. They had to be south facing on the backyard. It had to be city water, but on a septic system, which is weird.
That is weird.
Okay, it's usually the opposite, of that. I want to be on a well and that. We needed to be in the St. Michael Albertville School District. It needed to be all of these things, a half acre to an acre, all of this stuff. Yeah. Open windows. And I'm like, good luck. You're never buying a house. Like if these were non-negotiables, And they were very, very adamant about that. 2 days later, it pops up onto the MLS and we get in there. I'm like, guys, this checks all 10 boxes. Like you have to buy this. They're like, oh yeah, we're buying this. Like why wouldn't we buy it? We made the list and we bought it. So
that one, they had the feeling when they
it was,
they said, this is it.
It was, that doesn't happen with all buyers, but it was literally, those were 10 non-negotiables that they had. And I'm like, this is going to be a battle. And maybe we'll get 60% of those just because they're pretty unique. And literally it was like 2 days later, it actually pops up onto the market. And I'm like, well, this is it, guys. You have to buy this one now. So,
but I would say, and I don't know the situation at all. I've only heard your story. I also assume they probably had a budget that went with it. They weren't unrealistic about what they were looking for in terms of the financial dollars. Because I think that's what you were kind of getting to, Tyler, is oftentimes we have a wish list of 10 things, but you go, well, you don't have the budget for that. And so kind of coming up with those wish list items and saying, but let's keep it, when we look at realistically what you can afford, the lake shore isn't coming with that $400,000 6-bedroom budget.
Yeah. And I guess I wasn't even thinking about budget in that conversation, but yeah, sometimes the budget does evolve, both up and down. Like we don't need to spend this much money, or you know what, we can and we will, to go through that. I was thinking more of like the location. A lot of times, like I want to be within 10 minutes of here or something like that, or the opposite. Within a half an hour is fine. Well, half an hour turns into a 45-minute drive with traffic. It's like, okay, we need to hone this in a little bit further because you're doing it morning and night and sometimes bringing your kids to school and back and forth. Like, are you sure you want to be out this far? So just those were more the mindsets that I was thinking of, like real living lifestyle, day-to-day situation. Are we thinking about the right thing? Do we need to worry about a bigger backyard? Do you want to have a neighborhood where the kids can go and play with other kids in the neighborhood rather than kind of being in the outskirts, which sometimes we'll get into a different budget where it's, within that 400 mark that you're talking about, but you're so far away from all of your daily lifestyle stuff that maybe we should reconsider that side of it. And a lot of times it's just the style of the home and stuff too, is where you change kind of your evolution of your wish list. So
and I think it's like a two-parter here is because things change is you need to have an open mind. That's why I always say, all right, what are the basics? What are like the 2 or 3 non-negotiables? And it's usually we need 4 bedrooms or we need 3 bathrooms or this. I said, okay, I'm going to cast a large net.
Yes.
And our first search is going to be pretty open where a lot of them, based on what you just told me, are not going to qualify. I know that, you know that, but I would rather you say, I don't want to see this one. And then, all right, let's narrow it down versus putting too many qualifiers on it in the MLS. Because one thing, those are all human input. You know, they could be errors. They could be not 100% accurate. And it's filtered out to tens of thousands of sites. You know, let's cast the biggest net that we can and then start trolling backwards.
That's a good point. That's a conversation I always have as I'm setting up a search. If you're okay with it, I'm going to send you way too many homes. I'd rather have you see too many than miss that one that would have been perfect, to your point of if it's inputted incorrectly, or even it's just correctly inputted but didn't exactly hit the mark on that 3rd stall garage or whatever, but there's room to add something or any of that type of stuff, or it's a 2-car garage but it's double deep and you were only looking for a spot for your side-by-side of your motorcycle or your mower or whatever. So on paper, it doesn't make perfect sense, but in reality, it would work. So, yeah.
And I would say I actually just had that exact situation come up where thankfully they're not looking yet. They're looking here this spring, but they wanted me to get a search set up so that way they could kind of see what's on the market, what's in their price range, what are they looking for. And I got a text one day that said, hey, this house just came up on the market on Zillow. We didn't see it come through the email chain. I go and look it up. I'm like, well, that's because it's 1,600 square feet. You said a bare minimum of 2,000 finished square feet. And he goes, yeah, let's bump that down to 1,500. So that's now a lower number, and completely opened up the number of choices available. And so, and then there's just certain things like people say, well, we have to have 2 bathrooms. Well, what if there's 1 bathroom currently and one's roughed in the basement? It just doesn't count yet. So there's all sorts of options like that. And that's why we will oftentimes cast that wider net, because we wish, like what Tyler was saying earlier, we do want to get out there so that way we can see if you have that feeling where you go, yeah, this didn't match all those criteria, but we know this is the place.
I want to share one more story because it sounds like we're always trying to push you against something that you said you didn't want. That's not true. It's really gaining that relationship with you to learn about what actually you said you wanted to what you're actually responding to, what we see in real life. Is really good friends of ours are looking and said, I don't want a big house. We've had a big house. I don't want one, you know, so let's not even look at 4,000 square foot houses. I want something that we can move right into. I want to be on the lake. I don't want it big and I don't want it, you know, ugly. Do you know what they bought?
Is it ugly?
They bought a 4,000 square foot ugly 2-story, you know, and it was just like, this is exactly what you said. They remodeled inside, but it was something that they said they didn't want to. They said, we love this place. And I said, okay, again, because we're listening, you know, we're hired to tell you the things that you need to hear, not just what you want to hear all the time. I said, do you remember when you said you don't want this house? And it was specific. They actually had an opportunity to buy it off market, and they said, we hate it.
Lake house, non-big, non-ugly.
So, I mean, it was something like there, but we're here to you know, earn that relationship and respect in that conversation of saying, please trust us. Also remember when you said you didn't want this, you know, to ultimately help you make the best decision.
Yeah, just another checks and balance, right? To make sure it's like, are you thinking through what you're talking about doing? In most cases, they know what they're looking for, right? It's just like,
oh, these people didn't.
but I think it's also important to,
if you're listening to this, you know exactly who you are. Thank you.
But also important that just because something matches all the criteria does not necessarily make it the right house. Because I've gone and looked at plenty of houses that have matched, like this is approximately what I'm looking for, but I just look at it, I go, I don't like it. Like and that's totally fine. So yeah, exactly what you said. We're not trying to push you to buy it. We're also saying this is what you told us you wanted.
Yeah, we're it's that historical documentation of just like, all right, here, how can we get this to you?
Yep.
And actually, we do talk about this in our online webinars which is, we've got an upcoming one. It's a live webinar. If you were thinking about buying and learning a little bit more about that, we do break down how we actually make that showing educational, and you can always sign up for our upcoming webinar, which is in the link below. But yeah, it's all about education and helping you make the best decision as possible. So any closing thoughts?
I think having the conversation with us, bringing us into the loop on what you're looking for, and then keeping the continued open conversation is kind of the moral of the story. And I feel like this is the right house. That's when we'll know for sure is the right option.
And even on that note, with what you were just saying, is even if you're not, if you say you're not in the market yet, go ahead and let us know if you think you're getting into the market and you think you know what you're looking for, is because we hear about stuff off market all the time.
Yeah.
And so there might be those situations where we go, hey, so-and-so said they weren't looking at moving yet. However, this matches exactly what they were looking for. And we've had people move earlier than they expected because they went, oh, we didn't realize that this house was going to be available. Or as soon as they kind of acknowledged that they were looking for something, that it kind of sparked that. So
yeah, fairly consistently actually. And we're not trying to pull the sale forward. We're not trying to sell you a house faster, but sometimes there is that, I think this is the one for the Joneses.
Yep.
So
yeah. All right. It's tough to keep up with those people. All right. And I'm Tyler for North Star Pro Realty.
I'm Erik.
And I'm Tyler Loebertmann.